What's up, guys? It's Richie Rich back yet again, and this time I'm bringing you a review of the animated, legendary Matt Groening's greatest ever birth child, and this is The Simpsons. Be sure to check this out.
Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa. I wish you love and goodwill. I wish you please enjoy. I wish you better than your heart desires. And your first kiss from a boy.
The Simpsons. Everybody's Hasley sketch cartoon comedy. What a phenomenon, anyone who has seen animation, and like for myself, who has a love for cartoons dating back to the Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies and Tom and Jerry, it felt like The Simpsons became a staple of what successful cartoon animation sketches should and go on to be like. As I mentioned, like Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry, The Simpsons actually started as a collection of animated shorts. Like how the format was, like if you saw Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry, they had like a kind of like, it's half an hour like on TV time, but with commercials and breaks. We're talking about like 22 minutes, maybe 23 minutes tops. So in the formats of like those cartoon shows, they pretty much have three sketches, and like what usually happened is like the artists and the producers would create different sketches. So they'd be 10 minutes of like one sketch of Tom and Jerry, then it would follow another sketch, and you could even see the illustration design of Tom and Jerry is done by a different producer, so that's how it kind of worked. The Simpsons also went through that stage in the late 80s where it was on an animated shorts hour, which was on the US variety program The Tracy Ullman Show. Yeah, the story goes that Matt Groening was actually, this is once he was getting his start, like working as he was working as an animator for like different kind of studios, and he was contacted to like bring his kind of ideas, the early hybrid of The Simpsons to life, so an executive producer named James L. Brooks, if you know that name, you always see it in the end of the credits, watch the end of the credits of The Simpsons where they go shh. It will always mention like James L. Brooks. It was like these two kind of forces, combined, and thus we got the animated shorts. Sometimes amazing, sometimes what can happen if you just kind of wing it, because as I did like my research, Matt Groening like made the principal characters of Homer, Marge, Maggie, Bart, and Lisa, the dysfunctional, and he came up with the ideas to have them in the yellow colors, which is basically like every Caucasian who appears in The Simpsons would be in a yellow kind of presentation, So like he made this whole kind of idea simply just on the fly, just to fit in the animated shorts in that Tracy Ullman show, That Ullman show was running like in the mid to late 80s, around 87s, and the show got so much like positive feedback, not obviously what it became like later, but a lot of people just liked it because it was just it was something unique, no one had seen it before, and it caught people's attention. Because of like the feedback, Fox, which Simpsons always have mentioned with it, that kind of breaking the fourth wall, they always mention Fox. In 1989 December, they were given that half an hour slot, debuting with the iconic first episode when Bart is introduced to Santa's little helper, the dog, to the Simpsons family. The best thing with this is when the first episode debuted, it had like a great slot time. It did, it was around the Christmas time, when schools are already shut and people are going work or spending time with the family. That's when The Simpsons came on, so imagine this, just like no one's ever seen it before. You've got eyes around the whole world watching this kind of dysfunctional yellow family, you know, and it immediately was a hit, you know. From that, they were able to legit start season after seasons from that 89. So then when you hit the New Year's launching in the 90s, you had Simpsons just running on like 26 to like, you know, 30 episodes season after seasons. But where the biggest like you know, like like why it really took off was definitely the individual characters. So let's start off with the first and, you know, the chief of the family, Homer J. Simpson. So Homer Simpson, who is, he ideally is like the you know, the chief commander, like, you know, the family man of the Simpsons family. You know, Homer is married to the beautiful Marge Bouvier, who changed their name to Marge Simpson once they got married. He works in a nuclear power plant for Montgomery Burns. You know, one of them, like, in some ways he is basically seen as like the main antagonist of the series. You know, and Homer divides most of his time from going to Mo Sislak's, who's one of his friends. He's a bartender, and he goes to Moe's to get beers, you know. So he's just he's best way to describe Homer is he's a simpleton, has a good heart, but he's always like just trying to kind of, in a way, I feel like Homer is just like what like the everyman who's just trying to aspiring to more. You know, Homer has dreams. You know, he wants to, you know, see the world. You know, he has all these kind of like you know, like big fantasies, but he's not a guy who has the kind of work ethic to do that. You know, he has a very kind of short attention span. You know, most of the times you see Homer in the show, he's literally just watching TV, you know, and then like sometimes just sleeping and taking a nap, you know, which is just like, he's just like he's based on, like, I bet you real family man dads who were from the 90s and even to this day. You know, it's just that typical life of like, you know, they have their family, drop their kids at school, go to work for a boss that they discussed, and they have to go to like a bar to kind of like drink their sorrows, and the process just keeps on repeating, you know. So that's what Homer is. Then on the flip side, Marge is like it's simply, she's based on like the housewife, you know. Marge is probably one of the most supportive characters in this, like towards Homer, because like she has to put up with a lot, you know, of like dealing with Homer's like buffoonery, you know, sometimes what he causes of the family just doing stuff on the fly, you know. Marge is very supporting like to Homer, and I think it's one of those things with Marge. She's one of the girls who always dreamed of, you know, getting married and having a family. And with the character Marge, it's just so much of like you know, like keeping with traditions, you know, like once you get with a man, you know, even through all the trials and tribulations, what makes it stronger is you being able to stick there through the bad times. And trust me, there is a lot of bad times with like Homer, you know, Simpsons, but you know, she's always there, she's with them, you know. And then you have the three children, starting off with the the biggest troublemaker to ever exist in animation, Bartholomew. Remember, it's Bartholomew Simpson. You know, Bart Simpson is like he was kind of like a modern day version of Dennis the Menace. You know, he had the slingshot, he had his catchphrases like "Aya Caramba," "Eat my shoes," "Don't have a cowman." You know, just the rebellious. How old is Bart in Simpsons? He's not a teen. I think Bart's meant to be 10 and Lisa's meant to be 8. You know, someone tell me a correction on that. But Bart is just he's just a legit troublemaker. And you know, I was never really, because the thing with Bart, why I mentioned him is he, of all the Simpsons characters, he became the biggest phenomenon of the shows. You know, like I said, these catchphrases like, you know, "I come and eat my shoes," that was printed on t-shirts all across America. You know, if you even go just check Bart Simpson 90s, you know, they had the action figures, They had his skateboard, they had cups, mugs, spoons, forks, knives, anything just showing. But you could have him doing a slingshot, you know, because I think he just related to the rebellious kind of teens and youth who were just like going to school and they just didn't want to be there, you know, so they always just caused havoc. And you know, situations that, you know, like Principal Skinner, who's the principal of the school that Bart goes to, had to always resolve, you know. So I think a lot of kids related to him way more than like Lisa Simpson. And you know, of course no one's gonna really, you know, relate to Maggie at that much age, you know, but I just think he just had more of like such a big fan base than, you know, the other characters. Then, like, you know, the two last characters are the smart the smart and super intelligent Lisa Simpson, you know. Of all the characters, and this is just my opinion, of all the characters in The Simpsons, Lisa was just the one I just didn't relate to, you know, because I'm not really a smart person, you know, like I just like read a lot of books for a living, you know what I mean. But Lisa, for me, she always just reminded me, and I've met a few, like, you know, being in college and university, of a know-it-all, you know. You have some people in this world who just think they know everything, and because they think they know that, they always rightly believe they're better than you. You know, they can probably figure out like an algebraic equation within like, you know, 1 second flat, where some people would have to take time, do their, you know, things. You know, people are just have different kind of learning speed, you know. Lisa's just really bright and intelligent, but you can see in some certain episodes of The Simpsons, her like kind of knowing stuff too much, it ends up going back away, because I feel like Lisa is super smart. We're talking like Einstein intelligence, but sometimes just the common sense of just being able to kind of be, you know. And then last but not least is Maggie, you know, Maggie, who's for the pretty much like from the show starting like to where it is currently today, you know, she's the infant baby who always has the pacifier in her mouth, you know. Maggie's just a cool character because she just feels like she feels like she knows what's going on with the family, but she does, obviously she can't say that much because, you know, she's got the pacifier, but she does great movements with her eyes, you know, like just like sometimes when she's seeing like Homer like maybe chasing Bart, like about to strangle him there, just her eyes, you know, it just says a lot, you know. So I think with her it just completes like the character, the whole family all together, you know. So it just, you know, great ensemble cast of the 5 characters. You know, the voice artists that play like everybody's beloved Springfield family. So Dan Castanella, who appeared in the Pursuit of Happiness, he voices Homer Simpson. Julie Kavner voices Marge Simpson. Yeardley Smith voices Lisa Simpson. Nancy Cartwright, who also voiced Bart Simpson, also voiced Maggie Simpson. Specific characters. Then, because of how big the you know, like I can say Springfield is, and like all the characters, the supporting characters, you know, and if I list them off, I'll try do as many other characters. You've got Moses, like Apu, Chief Wiggum, Lionel Hart, Ned Flanders, Selma, Patty, Dr. Hibbert, hi Dr. Nick, Hoffman. But you know, like this is such a what's it? Did I say? I already mentioned Chief Wiggum, Mayor Quimby, Mr. Burns, Waylon Smithers. You know, it is such a big list of like, you know, supporting characters. You know, so you could have episodes of them, maybe just like one just focusing on like Waylon Smithers, you know, and it would like link Homer and like, you know, the family in like short like little fragments of it, you know. But it could just episodes of just supporting characters, which is like, you know, is a great thing, you know, because you could have some animated shows, you know, like for instance, if you watch like Tom and Jerry, majority of the times the episode is just gonna focus on them, you know. You're not gonna get some other cat, you know, chasing a mouse and like it's not Tom and Jerry within the same show, you know. But the Simpsons took time to like, you know, show like even when Apu was you know, Apu's like kind of situation with the Quickie Mart, like who needs the Quickie Mart? I do. Yeah, imagine a whole episode, 20-minute slot, just focused on Apu, you know, and they were great on doing that. Now, like, I really think what Simpsons really was good at was just that perfect blend of, like, you know, comedy and also like keeping you entertained. You know, like I felt like especially, and when I'm talking this, I'm talking about the original run. So I'm talking about the 90s to basically the early 2000s. You know, they had the right kind of ways to kind of show, like, alright, for instance, Simpsons were very synonymous for doing movie references, you know, but it was done, it was, if I can say, like, I think it was done in a cute way, you know, like it wasn't, there was never any foul in it. As I mentioned, like, you know, adding movie references, you know, if you see shows like later on, you know, like a Family Guy and American Dad, you know, they would do kind of references, but it's sometimes in points where it doesn't need to be there, you know, like for instance, in The Simpsons, like there's they do, right, there's one reference when Bart actually, this is, I think it's gotta be like season 2, Bart actually tells like the feds that you know, Milhouse is a fugitive, you know, so they show a scene of the actual when Tommy Lee Jones has like Harrison Ford and he's at the dam and he's about to jump, and Milhouse is like, I didn't do anything, and the you know, the cartoon character of Tommy Lee Jones is like, I don't care, you know, but it just plays it in a soft kind of way, you know. They take the actual scene from the movie and it's actually put into a nice sequence, you know. You can definitely tell the you know, the creators and the producers were big movie buffs, you know, because as I mentioned, movie references, that's something that plays in this show more than any other animated show I've ever seen, you know. And it's done, like I said, it's done correctly, you know. You will see so many scenes from the biggest iconic movies from, you know, we're talking like the early version of cinemas to, like, you know, current day, referenced in The Simpsons, you know, and it just makes you laugh, you know. Like, I feel like with that, and this is something that it ties onto, Simpsons was probably one of the first ones that, you know, it was shown a bit in like the Merry Melodies, like Looney Tunes, like when they would show how the early version of Hollywood, you know, like showing like, you know, them stars like Frank Sinatra, you know, back in the day. They would show them in like the Simpsons, you know, Merry Melodies, Looney Tunes, like in some 10-minute skits, you know. Simpsons was very good at putting guest stars in the TV shows, you know. Even if you see on the back of this cover, probably couldn't see it, this is Homer lying in bed with Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger, who were married at the time. There were so many other guest stars like Aerosmith, Anne Bancroft, Johnny Carson, Ted Danson, Brian Grazer, Woody Harrelson, Hugh Hefner, Ron Howard, Catherine O'Hara, Elizabeth Taylor, John Wesley, and Barry White, you know. And again, this is an era where stars were actually stars, you know. It's not like someone who just has like X amount of followers, you automatically see them as stars. This is like legit, like, you know, you can see aura, you know, stars, you know. You gotta remember that even Michael Jackson, one of my favorite episodes, you know, it's like a, you know, it's a tie probably between this and like when Homer fights Mike Tyson or Dredrick Tatum. One of the best episodes is when Homer gets he gets put into an insane asylum, because he let he let Bart Simpson hand in like one of his questionnaires they had to submit into the nuclear power plant, so they deemed him insane. So when he goes in there, he meets a mental patient who believes he's Michael Jackson, and turns out like Michael Jackson was the one who actually did it when he was still living. He actually voiced the mental patient, you know. So once they actually get to the end, the whole theme of it is Lisa's birthday, and Bart never gave Lisa a gift. So it has like a nice number at the end where Bart surprised Lisa in her bedroom, and they start doing, Lisa, it's your birthday, God bless to this day, you know, that nice sequence in that. And rumor has it that Michael never actually sung that, like it was a Michael impersonator, you know. But just the thought that Michael Jackson the biggest popular star since, like, you know, they say, you know, biggest thing since Jesus Christ. He was attached to the Simpsons, you know. You know, what more, how bigger can you get than, you know, having MJ voice one of the characters in the Simpsons, you know. And like, as I mentioned, you know, with like that Tyson, so there's a Richie Rich's favorite episode, that Stark raping dad, and also Homer facing Jedrick Tatum, you know, which it basically, Jedrick Tatum was basically like what Simpsons were good is they took like iconic like you know, actors, entertainers, sports stars in the media at that time, and they made their own version, like Rainier Wolfcastle, obviously based on Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you had Jedrick Tatum based on Mike Tyson, you know, and and they also had I don't know what his name is, but Don King also appeared in the episode, and I believe Don King actually voiced him, you know. And how that episode goes was like, you know, Mo actually used to box back in the day, you know, and he ends up like putting Homer, you know, basically to like kind of like do what he couldn't do, like try and make it, you know. And he starts to get like, you know, victories after victories after victories, and that, and then like basically the version of Don King comes in and says, well, you know, you could be ready for the big time, and they basically feed him to Jedrick Tatum, which I do believe at this time Mike Tyson may actually have been in prison for the rape charge, you know. So it was cool, like they actually made that kind of basically how it was shown on TV, like when Tyson fought like Tyson fought like Holyfield, or like the other, like Buster Douglas and that. They actually made it like Homer versus Jedrick Tatum, you know, them promo shots, you know. And it was just amazing how they could capture like you know, this kind of real situation, like the electricity of how fights were when like Mike Tyson was in his prime, you know, like you had all the stars there, you know, and you would go to them like, you know, this is Kent Brockman, you know, this just it, go to hell, you know. And like the Fan Man, you know, had that incident of thing, you know. So Simpson was very good. It always felt with the Simpsons, you know, they were very good at doing their homework of what like pop culture, you know, specifically pop culture was during the 90s era. The Simpsons is very dear to me because I'm, you know, I feel like, you know, me and like maybe a few select people, we're like one of the few who actually was there when we watched it when it was like in its prime time, in its best time, you know. I was first introduced to The Simpsons same time when Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was on TV, you know. I remember finishing school, like from 5 onwards to about 7, you had a double header of Simpsons followed by Fresh Prince, you know. So I remember just rushing from school to watch Fresh Prince and Simpsons, you know. So I just remember like seeing just so many episodes that I don't even have to watch back, but if you mention that, I can already know, like, you know, what the episode's about, you know, because it's already like, you know, embedded during my childhood, you know. And why I mention that is it's just that I feel like you know, with the Simpsons and now, you know, like the Simpsons that's still currently on to this day, I don't think it's the real Simpsons. I think what I was gonna say is with this show, I feel like the Simpsons, it will always go down as like the, you know, the landmark of what like a top-notch successful animated show should be like. The only issue is it's one of those shows that probably it would have been nice to just see an end, you know, like, you know, some shows like even if you look back, even Game of Thrones ended, and that's a show that could have possibly gone maybe even as long as The Simpsons, you know, because it's just like anything can happen, you know. But it feels like you know, sometimes, like, I know in show business they always say you always got to keep the fans wanting more. You know, the problem with The Simpsons still being on, because we're talking about like there's almost probably been about 600, maybe coming to 700 episodes, you know, launching from the 90s, and now we're in 2019, so that's almost like we're talking about like 20, yeah, maybe coming to 30 years of The Simpsons, you know. And it would have been nice if because I remember the time when Futurama came out, you know, and I was in my teens then. I honestly thought like Futurama was meant to be like the successor, you know, like Futurama, You know, it's made by the same you know, team that developed the Simpsons. I thought that was gonna basically be like, okay, Simpsons, you know, had its time, you know, all good things must come to the end with Simpsons, and let's focus on Futurama. But what happened was Futurama was there, and I feel like with the problem with Futurama, they just didn't have as interesting characters for you to even care about. You know, as I mentioned, like the Simpsons, you don't even sometimes have to show the main five of them, and you could still care for like Ned Flanders, you could still care for like Chief Wiggum or Dr. Hibbert. You can do that. But Futurama, besides like Leela, Fry and Bender, you know, who is gonna really care about Zoidberg? A crustacean who's spruce like rah, no one's gonna really care about them, you know. So they didn't really take time in Futurama to really highlight these other characters and that. So like, you know, some of the people, I know this for a fact, some of the people would just be like, you know, what's the point? Let me go back to Simpsons. And because of that, I think that's one of the reasons we're still seeing episodes of The Simpsons to this day. You know, Futurama just, you know, slowly crumbled. You know, the soundtrack for this show, you know what I mean? Because like, as I mentioned, because there's so many guest stars that appear from, you know, the show's beginning to as it's now, there can be very different like tunes that will play during the show, but all referencing where we are as a culture today. You know, the music that they had from the early beginning of the 90s was all just like, you know, the craze of like the 90s hip hop, the 90s rock music, you know, like Aerosmith, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Coldplay, you know, all those musics that were like at one point the SHIT, that was always like referenced somewhere in the show, you know. And to now, you know, you got like, you know, Bruno Mars, Taylor Swift, Rihanna, you know, that's what would be in the show now. But like the principal music is, you know, like for the intro, like The Simpsons, dun, 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 dun. You know, that's the main tune, you know, showing like how Springfield is, you know, that, you know, the iconic intro, which changed a few times, you know. I think the original one was a bit longer, you know, before they get to like, because the whole scene shows like how every, you know, Marge, Homer, Bart, Lisa and Maggie, you know, leave where they are to get back to the couch to turn the TV on back at their house, you know. So it shows like the kind of days of their lives, you know, like how they live before they get back home, you know. So the music, that iconic music, is the one that it will play in like instruments like in the show, you know, but that would be just the main, you know, Springfield theme, you know. I would definitely say, you know, for me, like when I have the Simpsons, I've got from the first episode to about like season 8 or 9. So I've got the first like kind of 9 seasons, you know, where I felt like they just put kind of more effort onto the stories and just more emphasis on like the you know, the actual kind of Springfield and its characters, you know. I would say if anyone wants to see Simpsons at their best, just get the seasons from the 90s, you know. Bit of the 2001s are cool, but just stick with them. If you watch any of them from later on, like 2000 onwards, it just doesn't have the same effect, you know. But again, it's like I'm explaining something which everyone knows, you know. Simpsons has just become a household name, you know. Usually when you see yellow and you see in a cartoon, you will know it's got to deal with Matt Groening's like you know, crazy but successful you know, creative concept, The Simpsons, you know. So I would definitely say, you know, definitely go back and watch the shows, you know. You definitely will not be disappointed. Guys, yes, that's my review on The Simpsons. Stay tuned for more upcoming 90 reviews, which, trust me and believe in me, which will be coming very, very soon. But when that magical day does arrive in Springfield, I assure you that Richie Rich will be back yet again. Peace to fingers.
Lisa, it's your